I've seen something. Hundreds of pilots have seen something in the skies. We have dutifully reported these things. And we have to have 15 million witnesses before anybody's going to look into the problem seriously. Why, this is utterly fantastic. This is more fantastic than flying saucers or people from Venus or anything, as far as I'm concerned.
9 disc-like objects, roughly 45 miles away, flying at a speed of approximately 1,500 miles per hour near Mount Rainier, Oregon. The date? June 24, 1947.
Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's show. I am your host. We don't have just a cut and paste murder mystery or missing persons case. We have a UFO mystery to go over tonight, and if you haven't already, you need to open up your mind and maybe even your third eye, who knows. But before we get into all that, just remember that subscribing to our channel really helps us. If you enjoy our show, you can even hit that bell notification button to catch all our latest upcoming content. You could even comment down below. I'd love to talk about anything that you guys would like to add to this conversation. This isn't just any UFO story. This sighting was one of the first ever recorded in the modern era. This is exactly what spawned the idea of little green men in tights with blaster weapons and flying saucers. Let us start off with the man, the legend himself, Kenneth Arnold. He was an American aviator and a very skilled pilot. He was born March 29th, 1915 in Sebeka, Minnesota. He wrote the books Real Flying Saucers, Other Worlds, and The Coming of Saucers with Raymond A. Palmer in 1952. He ran for lieutenant governor of Idaho successfully in 1962. It seems very strange, though, that some articles actually call him an amateur pilot. But doing a little digging, I found he was a skilled pilot with over 9,000 total flying hours, more than half of which that had been devoted to search and rescue Mercy Flyer efforts. So I'm not entirely sure why they would call him an amateur, but who knows. He was also a businessman. He built Western Fire Control Supply in Boise, Idaho in the 1940s. He was a distinguished and trusted gentleman in his community. On July 24, 1947, a Marine Corps C-46 transport airplane had gone down in the area between the town of Mineral, Washington and Mount Rainier, with about 32 Marines on board. For a reward of $5,000, Kenneth Arnold took flight from the Chehalis Airport at 2 p.m. near Mount Rainier and Mount Adams. He was flying a single-engine Call Air A-2 and was in pursuit of the crashed aircraft. At 9,500 feet in the air, he then decides to head eastward towards Yakima, Washington, and do a sweep of the area near Mount Rainier. He was startled by several sudden flashes of bright white light, and 9 unusual shiny objects flying in past the mountains at speeds of which Arnold estimated to be 1,200 and 1,700 miles an hour at 10,000 feet altitude. Arnold describes these crafts as being very reflective, almost like an oscillating motion, kind of like sunlight coming off of a mirror. At first, Kenneth thought the light must have been coming from another plane. He looked around though. All he could see was a DC-4 aircraft. It seemed to be flying about 15 miles away from him, and it was not flashing. About 25 miles away from its original approximation closer to Mount Rainier, he was still seeing these mirror saucer-like shiny objects, so he conducted some tests while in his plane to make sure that these reflections weren't from an obvious source. He rocked his plane back and forth, side to side, to see if the light could be parallel with the glass to prove it's a reflection. He took off his glasses for a moment, and he rolled down his side window. He said, "I could see way off to the right, coming in the vicinity of Mount Baker, a whole chain-like string of aircraft, coming at a tremendous speed. I could only see plainly that they didn't have any tails. I had never seen aircraft of that kind. I made a quick judgment that they must be approximately 100 feet in their wingspan, and the first unit or first craft flew at a higher altitude than the last, and of course this is completely reversed from our normal flight patterns. I had a good fix with Mount Adams. I thought I'd try to clock their speed between Mount Rainier and Mount Adams." Pretty soon they approached Mount Adams, and I got a good look at one particularly. The second from the last one seemed a little larger and had a definite wraith-like shape, though however, When they were flashing and flipping, they seemed circular. As they left the southernmost ridge of Mount Adams, I looked at my sweep secondhand, and they had covered the distance, which is approximately 50 miles in a minute and 42 seconds. It would skip and sail and give off these flashes of light. If you could take a saucer and you could skip it across the water, and it is somewhat erratic, this is how the name Flying Saucer was born. Mr. Arnold then made his way to the Pendleton, Oregon airport to later recount his story to airport officials and the media and local newspapers at the time. However, he did not say that they were saucer-shaped. The media at the time took a hold of Mr. Arnold's vivid description about saucers skipping across the water in the sky, and coined the now worldwide term, flying saucer. Technically, Kenneth never said he saw flying saucers. Truth is, he probably saw something way more spectacular. Some of Mr. Arnold's descriptions were flat like a pie pan, shaped like a pie plate, half moon-shaped, oval in front, it's sort of a convex triangle in the rear, like a big flat disc, or like a fish flipping in the sun. Though Arnold said previously he initially thought he had seen were test flights of military aircrafts, the military later said that they had not conducted any test flights during the time of the incident. Arnold's sighting was corroborated by a prospector named Fred Johnson on Mount Adams, who wrote AAF Intelligence that he saw 6 of the objects on June 24th at around the same time as Arnold. He viewed them through a small telescope. He said that they were round and tapered, sharply to a point in the head and in an oval shape. He also noted that the objects seemed to disturb his compass. An evaluation of the witness by AAF Intelligence found him to be credible. Ironically, Johnson's report was listed as the first unexplained UFO report in Air Force files, while Arnold's was dismissed as a mirage. Yet, Johnson seemed to be describing a continuation of the same event as Arnold. Also in July of 1947, a newspaper in Roswell, New Mexico claimed that the personnel of a nearby U.S. Army airfield had recovered a crashed flying saucer. The Army in turn explained that the crash was that of a wrecked weather balloon. Though the Roswell incident was mostly forgotten until the late 1970s, around that time several eyewitnesses began to come forward claiming that the weather balloon was in fact an alien craft. The U.S. Air Force began an investigation of these reports called Operation Sign in 1948. Among the initial theories of the project's participants was that the UFOs were actually types of Soviet aircrafts. Air Force investigators deemed both Arnold and the prospector to be credible witnesses, but publicly concluded that what they had seen was a mirage. Operation Sign is the predecessor to a much larger private government organization called Project Blue Book. It is the longest running of the U.S. government's official inquiries into UFOs. They compiled reports of more than 12,000 UFO sightings or related events from 1952 to 1969. Project Blue Book is a huge story within its own right, and I wouldn't be doing it justice if I tried to explain it within this video, so that will be a story for another day. I bring this up today because I just want to remind everyone of the importance of disclosed actual UFO footage just shown in the past few years. I would just like to remind everyone who may have forgotten about something that may give credence to Kenneth Arnold's legacy. Just back in December of 2017, a Navy pilot recalled his experience with UFO on Fox News and was treated quite strangely by Tucker Carlson. This FMR Navy pilot says that this anomalous event happened about 100 miles southwest of San Diego, while the pilot was flying a jet on a clear blue day. The Pentagon has a research team called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. This program collected video and audio recordings of the reported UFO incidents, including footage from a Navy FA-18 Super Hornet showing an aircraft surrounded by some kind of glowing aura traveling at high speeds and rotating as it moves. These videos have been declassified by the Pentagon and released to the public as legitimate evidence of UFOs. Just as before, and just like now, we have more questions than answers, and maybe one day that will change, but for now, our government's deepest secrets will stay hidden in the dark. Okay, so there has been a lot of stuff going on TikTok with UFOs and lights in the sky and a lot of that, and I've been through quite a bit of it, but just a few weeks ago, there was this whole UFO incident video, which I'm going to show up on screen right now. people were mistaking a UFO to be, I mean, it was the Goodyear blimp. It was the Goodyear blimp. If you see the video, if you look at the video, you could tell the little white light in the back is blinking, and it's a blimp. But what I will say is that there are quite a few videos on the platform right now that aren't easily identifiable. If you just type in UFO 2020, you'll find tons of videos of people pointing their cameras up in the sky and seeing strange lights in the sky moving at strange speeds. I mean, there's tons of it. And just type it in on YouTube right now. Type in UFO TikTok or TikTok UFO. Nothing will show up. But I digress. Something that I really wanted to talk about other than these TikTok videos, which I'm going to put on screen while I talk about this. When I was growing up, my dad was friends with quite a few people, and I got the privilege to hang out with quite a few interesting individuals. Back when I was younger, I went to this place called ESETI Ranch, and me and my dad went, and we camped there for a few nights. We went there with Clyde and a few of the producers. They talk about first-hand contact with extraterrestrials here. They claim that they're in contact with spiritually and technologically advanced extra and ultra-terrestrial off-world visitors. They refer to them as the greater family of man. According to James Gilliland, he's known as the ESETI Ranch owner. He claims that aliens touched down on his property and made first-hand contact with him. My story actually relates a lot with the Kenneth Arnold mystery because ESETI is located right at the base of Mount Adams, just in the same place where Kenneth Arnold saw his sighting. Now, to give a little background about what I experienced while I was there, as we pulled up to ESETI and we saw the gates, I stuck my head out the window to kind of see what was around us before we entered the property. And what I noticed immediately, when you looked up into the sky was a pink hue, almost like the blue sky that we see on the normal basis, just turned pink, just out of the blue. And this occurred right when we entered the property line, and it stayed that way for the next three and a half days. About around the first night we were there, a lot of people had been experiencing strange phenomenon, like people standing in the trees or seeing like supernatural beings, or there was even a claim where they saw like Mother Mary standing out in the field. But but I think what really surprised me is the first night when we were all standing out in the field UFO watching. We all looked up in the sky, and I was standing next to a gentleman who I believe owned ESETI. His name is James Gilliland. He had like army gear on, he had like night vision military grade night vision goggles, military grade laser pointers, all the above. Everything that you would need to see in the dark or see something that you normally wouldn't be able to see. I was standing next to him, and we were talking. Me, him, and my dad were talking about, we're pointing up at the sky, saying, "Look there, look at that." And as we were all standing there looking up at the sky, my dad pointed out there were like 4 little lights in the sky, and they're all flying all in different directions. And one veered off to the left, one veered off to the right, one was going in the circular motion. And I said, "Hey, let me borrow your laser pointer, your military grade laser pointer." And I took it from him, and I pointed it right at this little light, and I clicked the light 3 times at it. I turned it on, turned it off, turned it off, turned it off 3 times at this light in the sky. And this light blinked 3 times back at me. A crowd of 400 people saw it. They all cheered as if, everybody else saw it, and everybody else knew what that was. I I don't know if that's like first-hand contact or anything, but it was pretty interesting, to say the least. But anyways, guys, I think that's all the time we have for tonight. I really appreciate everyone who tunes into my channel. It means a lot to me, and I hope that we can continue what we do here. Please hit that notification bell button to stay updated with all of our uploads. Leave me a like and comment to let me know you liked or disliked the video. And remember, you are living in a conspiracy.